Rising from the East River between Queens and the Bronx sits Rikers Island, a cluster of jail buildings operated by New York City. It is not a prison. It is a jail. Most people held here have not been convicted of a crime. They wait for court dates, hearings, or the chance to post bail. The legal presumption of innocence applies. The lived reality does not. Rikers functions as the city's primary detention system, processing tens of thousands of admissions each year. Its reputation is built not on secrecy or isolation, but on volume, neglect, and failure carried out in plain view. If stories like this matter to you, consider subscribing, because what happens next reveals how this system truly works. The jail complex operates across multiple facilities, including units for men, women, and adolescents, though the adolescent jails are closed later after sustained criticism. The population shifts daily. People enter and leave constantly. Many stay only days or weeks. Others remain for months or years due to court delays, inability to pay bail, or administrative backlogs. This churn strains every function of the system. Housing assignments change. Medical records lag behind. Continuity of care breaks down. Responsibility diffuses. In this environment, accountability weakens. What begins as temporary detention becomes prolonged exposure to risk. Rikers gains notoriety not because it houses the most dangerous people, but because it fails to control violence inside. Fights occur regularly. Stabbings with improvised weapons are documented. Assaults on detainees and staff are recorded. Some housing units become effectively governed by inmate groups rather than officers. Federal investigators later confirm patterns of unchecked force and delayed responses. Officers sometimes avoid entering units without backup. In some cases, they remain behind locked doors while violence unfolds on the floor. Staffing shortages define daily operations. Absenteeism among correction officers remains high for years. Sick leave rates exceed those of comparable systems. Entire posts go unfilled. Supervisors struggle to maintain minimum coverage. With fewer officers on duty, units are locked down for extended periods. Recreation time is canceled. Access to programs disappears. Detainees spend long hours confined to crowded dorms or cells with limited supervision. Tension builds. Small conflicts escalate quickly. Medical care failures mark some of the most serious outcomes. Detainees with chronic illnesses experience delayed treatment. Mental health screenings are inconsistent. Requests for care go unanswered. In multiple cases, deaths in custody follow missed warning signs. Independent reviews later cite lapses in monitoring, communication breakdowns, and inadequate staffing. Suicide prevention protocols exist on paper, but implementation varies widely. People in crisis are sometimes left alone for hours. Use of force becomes a central concern. Reports describe officers using physical force in situations that do not require it. Surveillance footage later shows punches, kicks, and prolonged restraints. Documentation is incomplete or inaccurate. Some incidents go unreported entirely. Whistleblowers face retaliation. Oversight bodies struggle to obtain timely records. Internal investigations move slowly. Discipline, when imposed, is often delayed or reduced. Gang influence shapes daily life in certain housing areas. Affiliated groups exert control over beds, food, and movement. New arrivals learn quickly which areas are considered safe and which are not. Officers sometimes rely on informal inmate leaders to maintain order. This practice further undermines authority and increases risk for those without protection. The line between control and abandonment blurs. The physical infrastructure deteriorates over time. Many buildings date back decades. Plumbing fails. Heating and cooling systems break. Cells flood. Electrical issues persist. Maintenance requests pile up. Living conditions fall below accepted standards. Overcrowding compounds every problem. Dorm-style housing places dozens of people in single rooms with limited privacy and constant noise. Sleep disruption is common. Stress accumulates. Rikers becomes a subject of repeated legal scrutiny. Civil rights lawsuits allege unconstitutional conditions of confinement. Settlements require policy changes that are unevenly applied. In 2014, the U.S. Department of Justice issues findings that document a pattern of excessive force against adolescent detainees. The report describes a culture that tolerates violence and discourages reporting. Federal oversight follows. A court-appointed monitor is installed to track compliance. Despite monitoring, progress remains slow. Reform plans are announced. Training programs are expanded. Body cameras are introduced. Data collection improves. Yet core problems persist. Staffing shortages continue. Violence rates fluctuate but remain high. Leadership turnover disrupts continuity. Political pressure shifts priorities. Each new administration promises change. Structural issues endure. Pretrial detention at Rikers magnifies inequality. People with financial resources post bail and leave. Those without remain. Minor charges can result in weeks or months of confinement. Court dates are postponed. Cases drag on. Time served in jail pressures some to accept plea deals regardless of guilt. The system incentivizes speed over fairness. Detention itself becomes leverage. Mental illness is overrepresented in the population. Many detainees arrive with untreated conditions. The jail becomes a default mental health facility without adequate resources. Solitary confinement, once used frequently, worsens symptoms. After public outcry, its use declines, but alternatives are limited. Therapeutic units are understaffed. Continuity of care after release is inconsistent. Women held at Rikers face specific risks. Facilities for women are smaller and often overlooked. Reports document inadequate medical care, including during pregnancy. Instances of sexual abuse by staff lead to criminal prosecutions. Oversight mechanisms fail to prevent repeated violations. Trust between detainees and staff erodes further. The adolescent population draws particular attention. Younger detainees experience higher rates of injury. Educational services are disrupted. Federal findings describe routine violence and a lack of age-appropriate care. These conditions prompt legal action and eventual closure of adolescent units on the island. The legacy of harm remains documented in court records. Correction officers also operate under strain. Long shifts, mandatory overtime, and unsafe conditions contribute to burnout. Training is inconsistent. New recruits enter volatile environments with limited preparation. Morale declines. Labor disputes complicate reform efforts. Accountability measures face resistance. The system becomes locked in conflict between management, staff, and oversight bodies. Data transparency improves over time, revealing the scale of the problem. Assault statistics, response times, and staffing levels become public. The numbers confirm long-standing concerns. Violence correlates with understaffing. Lockdowns increase as staffing drops. Medical incidents rise during periods of operational stress. The patterns repeat. Public perception of Rikers shifts from scandal to symbol. It represents the failures of urban incarceration. It illustrates how detention without conviction can still inflict harm. Advocacy groups call for closure. City officials announce plans to shut down the island and replace it with smaller borough-based jails. Timelines are set. Deadlines move. The island remains open. Closing Rikers proves complex. Legal, logistical, and political challenges delay progress. Construction plans face opposition. Funding fluctuates. Meanwhile, people continue to enter the system daily. The conditions they face are shaped by decisions made years earlier. Reform occurs slowly. Harm continues in the interim. Rikers Island does not operate in isolation. It reflects broader trends in American criminal justice. Pretrial detention expands. Bail practices entrench inequality. Jails become catch-all institutions for social problems. When oversight weakens, abuse follows. When resources decline, risk increases. The lessons are documented and repeated. Today, Rikers remains active. Federal monitoring continues. City leaders reiterate commitments to change. Some metrics improve. Others worsen. The system remains unstable. For the people held inside, the distinction between temporary detention and punishment collapses. Time becomes the penalty. Exposure becomes the cost. Rikers stands as evidence of what happens when custody replaces care and delay replaces justice. It shows how a jail can become a site of sustained harm without secrecy or distance. The failures are recorded in reports, lawsuits, and data. They are not hidden. They persist. The island's future remains uncertain. Plans exist. Deadlines loom. Outcomes depend on sustained attention and structural change. Until then, Rikers continues to hold people presumed innocent in conditions that test that principle daily. The record is clear. The consequences are ongoing.